fear taking over. And that's a dreadful thing. It has to be countered.
I mean, basically, women have just got to speak out about how awful it is for us as individuals.
I do have a certain fear. For example, I think there are places in London that I wouldn't like to walk out if I was alone at night.
Go for the eyes or for the nose. 2 fingers, especially if you've got long nails, into the eyes there or up the nose there is agonising.
When I've come home late from the House of Commons without my car, I have really been terrified to walk from the Underground. It's about 6 or 7 minutes walk to my flat.
I only take one precaution when I'm out, and I use it day and night, and that is to carry CS gas.
I feel as unsafe as the next woman. The fact that I can run faster away doesn't make me feel any bit more safe than anybody else.
I normally endeavour to walk in streets which are properly lighted up. I always dress down, if I may put it that way, as opposed to dressing up. I certainly wouldn't wear jewellery, fake or otherwise.
I used to travel a lot by Underground. I like it, but I've stopped doing it because if I was on my own in one of those long, long passages, you get petrified.
I've always got a heavy bag with me with knitting in and the hairdryer and, there's always something to swing if anybody came anywhere near me.
World in Action has commissioned the widest ever survey of its kind on women's fear. We found that 9 out of 10 women across the nation are frightened or cautious about going out on their own after dark.
Is that acceptable?
I don't think it's acceptable, but I can totally understand it.
Our survey revealed the scale of a problem that affects most women. If it affected men in the same way, it would amount to a national emergency. In our nationwide opinion poll, we questioned 1,000 people in depth to find out just how safe they felt to walk the streets of their cities, towns and villages. We asked men and women what they were most afraid of: getting cancer, being attacked on the street, being in a road accident or losing their job. For women, being attacked on the street was their greatest fear. For men, that fear only ranked 4th.
But what a vicious weapon it is.
Lady Cabs.
So it's a question of just sitting down, one foot my tummy and lift your hand above your head. Off you go.
A booming industry is being built on women's fear to walk the streets. Lady Cabs in North London saw a market in taxis for women. Many of their customers have had unpleasant experiences and wanted the guarantee of a safe journey.
I think it's a damning indictment on society that women have to go to great lengths to protect themselves when all they want to do is to go home from work or to go and visit a friend or go out and have an evening's fun or enjoyment.
This company calls itself Sir Galahad and has sold 94,000 personal alarms to women.
The media every day are talking about, rapes and muggings and handbag snatching, and that is developing our industry.
The World in Action survey found that 67% of women are so frightened that they only go out alone after dark when really necessary. Men were relatively untroubled by fear of attack. But for women of all ages, it's become a factor which influences and restricts their lives every day.
I just feel under threat. And I just don't take any chances. That's all it's to it. You're always on the alert.
May Moynihan is 72 and lives alone. 3 years ago, she was robbed on her way home, and now her life is dominated by her fear to walk the streets.
I don't know, I just think I've always got that little bit of fear in me. Just don't seem to be able to get rid of it.
Like more than half the elderly women in our survey, May never goes out after dark. She ventures out just 4 times a week in daylight.
When I'm on my own, if I hear a step, anybody coming close, I have to stand back and wait until they pass me. I just don't like anybody at my back. Tense all the time, tense.
She allows an hour and a half for her short journey through North Manchester to ensure that she'll get home before dark.
It is very lonely. So I'm standing there from one foot to the other until the bus does come.
May takes a detour to walk past the school at the time children are coming out. They make her feel safer.
I'd go out of my way, even if it meant 10 minutes or a quarter of an hour. You're thinking all the time, which is the safest way. It's terrible to be suspicious, you know. You're frightened of being frightened of everybody. You're frightened of your own shadow. That's true.
Home Office statistics show that elderly women are the least likely to be attacked in the street. A young man is 8 times more likely to be a victim. So is the fear unreasonable? Our survey showed that although very few women had been seriously assaulted, many had experienced more minor incidents that had scared them.
Anyway, these footsteps were behind me. It started getting quicker and quicker. And I thought, oh, crikey, I'm not going to start running because this is stupid. He might just be, you know, one of these long-distance running types that's just practising. And, I mean, you can't really sort of turn around to every person you say, can you? Think, oh, you're going to attack me or something. And so I thought, well, I started to walk a bit quicker and started running. And so did he. And I thought, God, this is awful. I didn't look back either because I thought he's going to... If I look back at him, he's going to know that I'm obviously, you know, worried about something. So I saw this light on this house and knocked on the door. And I said, I know you don't know me from Adam. I said, you'll probably never see me again. I said, but please, please, can you pretend to be my mother? I said, because he's this funny weirdo. Oh, come in. And she was marvellous. She said, oh, darling, I was that worried you'd be late for your tea.
It was during the middle of the day. It was on a main road, and I was just walking down the street by myself, and I became aware that there were footsteps getting faster behind me, and you don't bother to look round because then that encourages them even more. And all of a sudden, a man had walked straight in front of me. He doubled back and stood about 3 inches away from my face and just said, I'm going to have you.
The car was crawling along beside me, and the driver was holding the passenger side door open. And I thought, oh, God, what am I going to do? He was quite a little way away from me. And then I thought, well, I don't know, I should face up to this. So he was calling out, miss, miss. So I walked over to him, jerked the door open wider and said, yes. And he said, I wondered if you'd like to come for a drink. And I said, oh, I thought you were going to ask the way. I'm a policewoman. And he shot off down the road so fast he nearly threw me over.
I became aware that I was being followed, and I remember just thinking that I was terrified. It was a big person, and I thought, I'm not going to outrun him, so the only thing I can do is hide. So I cleverly sort of weaved around, knowing the area very well, and hid behind dustbins. And I saw, I'll never forget it, I saw him standing under the streetlights, breathing heavily. It was cold, winter, I could see the steam coming out of his mouth, just waiting. And I just stayed there for about half an hour. And then when he'd gone, pelted like I've never run before as fast as I could for home.
And a chap approached me and just put his arm round me at first. And he said he wanted to kiss me. So I tried desperately to push this man away. And I thought, well, if ever anyone got hold of me, I would kick them and I'd poke them in the eye. But this didn't happen. I just rooted to the spot. I couldn't even scream, I was that frightened. And I tried to push him away again, but he was not, he pushed me against a wall. I was really frightened. So all I could think of was run.
Lynn Carnell is a trained nurse. She's 38 years old and nearly 6 foot tall. Although she escaped that incident 20 years ago, she's never forgotten it.
I am not normally a nervous person. I work with people all the time in a hospital situation. I am not a nervous person. In fact, I am one of the most outgoing people I know. It only has to happen to you once, don't it? To devastate your life.
Just do it yourselves.
Do you ever go out alone at night?
Never. Never. Never go out on my own at night.
Why not?
Well, just because of the fear I've got that I may be attacked.
It's 7:30 p.m. Lynn leaves her house for night duty at the hospital. But she won't go further than the front garden on her own.
I have to wait for someone to chaperone me, to take me. I mean, I just imposed it, and I just think other women have imposed a curfew on themselves.
Her husband Morris drives her the 3 miles to work, past the bus stop where she would have had to catch her first bus. They travel through the centre of Nottingham, where Lynn would have had to catch the next bus.
I would feel, if I was by myself in a dark street, this man could potentially attack me.
Lynn wondered if she was alone in her fear, so one night she did a count.
And between where I live and the Queen's Medical Centre, I saw 57 men, including joggers, merrily going about their business, and one woman with 2 dogs. So I thought, this just can't only be me that stays in the evenings. It must be everybody, not just me.
Statistically, you're less likely to be attacked than a young man.
Well, I think, yes, I am less likely to be attacked. But the only reason that I'm less likely to be attacked is because I don't put myself in the position of being attacked. I mean, who needs a chaperone at 38? I'm not in a strange environment. This is where I live. This is my city. And I should be able to walk around it as freely as anyone else. After dark, after 4:30, I should be able to do as I wish. I don't believe it's a free society. It may be for men. It most certainly isn't for women.
In our survey, only 12% of women thought that men really understood their fear.
Marie Wilkes's body was found in dense undergrowth on a roadside embankment, 7 months pregnant. She'd been stabbed to death.
With each new attack on women, press and TV coverage supply the gruesome details.
His victim, usually a young woman, at home between 7 and 11 in the morning. Sometimes the toddlers were in the room as their mother was raped.
41% of the women in our survey said that media reports had made them afraid.
He liked to lay traps for his victims. On this railway footpath at Horsley in Surrey, a piece of nylon cord set in motion the last movements of a 15-year-old schoolgirl.
There's a lot of anger, but very little action. In 1988, there were 2 particularly terrible attacks on women which attracted attention. In March, a woman was murdered in daylight in a train travelling into Victoria Station in London.
She was stabbed 5 times in a frenzied attack, police calling her killer a maniac. Miss Lindsley had been travelling in an enclosed single compartment like this, trapped with her killer with no escape route and no one able to hear her screams. Transport police have described these carriages as death traps and warn women travelling alone to avoid them. But this brutal murder will add to the pressure for BR to act immediately.
But more than 1,000 of those compartments are still in service every weekday. British Rail's response to the murder was to paint a red stripe on these carriages and publicise it to alert women.
Do you know what a red stripe round the top of a train means?
No, I don't know. A red stripe on a train? No.
I've no idea. You've no idea?
No idea. Putting your head out of the window? No, that wouldn't be it, would it?
Put a sign up as prominent, perhaps there's no smoking or something like that. Not a red stripe. I mean, I had no idea what it was.
Do you think it's okay for British Rail to continue running single compartment carriages?
No.
Why not?
No, because we shouldn't be alone. It's not safe today.
None of the women we interviewed outside Waterloo Station knew what the red stripe meant. British Rail says the trains will continue to run until 1991. Later last year, in another terrible incident, a 7-month pregnant woman was found dead after her car broke down on the motorway.
The emergency phone she had used was found dangling from its mounting. She'd been cut off halfway through her call.
10 weeks later, while she was driving down the motorway, Cheryl Millward remembered this incident when something caught her eye.
I saw a lady walking along the hard shoulder towards the telephone box. I thought, oh dear, I wonder if that lady needs help.
Cheryl pulled over to help the stranded woman. Moments later, the police arrived and booked her for stopping on the hard shoulder.
Well, he said that I would commit an offence, and I said I didn't realise it was an offence to stop and offer someone help. I thought that they would have gone back to the lady, right? But they didn't. They just went off on the travels.
The police offered no help to the woman and her baby, who waited for another 50 minutes alone on the motorway. Later, after complaints, a policeman called on Cheryl to say that the fine had been waived.
Well, I asked him how he would have felt if it had have been his wife who'd been broken down on the motorway with a young baby in the car, and that if I had gone straight past her and left her and something had happened to her, how would he have felt about me?
In the World in Action survey, we asked women to suggest their own solutions to their fear on the streets. The most popular suggestions were harsher sentences, less violence on TV, and better street lighting. None of them suggested learning to fight.
I'm going to put my hands on your neck, like that, for first strangling you. You see?
But Stan Brogan is teaching women to do just that.
This is what you might say a male world, fighting, attacking, squabbling. Women have got to get in there because they're being attacked, and there is this initial psychological hurdle that they realise that they've got to actually jump that fence if they want to survive. So, if we take one of our volunteers, anybody, you'll do, ma'am. Charming lady. She likes being beaten up.
Stan Brogan is a police inspector. In his spare time, he's helped to set up a national network of classes under the auspices of the British Judo Association.
She must resist. Must resist.
Come in. Is a woman really going to be able to do that against a violent attacker?
Well, if she can't, what option is there? Surely, if it's a violent attacker, it's all that she's got left. It's the last trick she's got in her pocket.
Some of the ingredients in his class are simply terrifying.
A few of the weapons that we were looking at earlier, of course, is the usual knives. Hundreds of them. There are many types of knives that you'll come across.
He shows the sort of weapons that have been used to attack women.
All sorts of knives. We've got plenty of them here. We've looked at them all. We've handled them. Simple knives, butterfly knives.
Oh, they're really frightening. Some are so enormous you wouldn't think anyone would have them. But he said that they've actually been taken from criminals, so obviously they're nutters around with them.
It's nice to see and handle a weapon rather than the first time you meet it when you find it at your throat.
In fact, the chance of being violently attacked by a complete stranger is small. And 2 out of 3 reported rapes are committed by someone the victim knows.
In what circumstances are women in danger of violent attack by men?
I think that because the domestic violence cases that are heard in court are heard in camera, i.e. without the public being permitted in, and that of course includes the press, that the public are not adequately or sufficiently aware of the extent of domestic violence as it exists today. And I have more domestic violence cases than I ever have cases of women being attacked in the street.
Well, very few women face serious attacks. It is a very small proportion of us. We get a very unnatural idea of what we're up against because all the media tells us about are the serious assaults where women are attacked by strangers on the street and very seriously injured. Research has shown that that isn't the most common assault that women face. Without having the confidence to deal with those small-scale assaults that we face on almost daily basis, there's very little chance of us being confident enough to deal with a serious assault. Right, I want to start off today by thinking a little bit about ways we can draw attention if we find ourselves in trouble, both on the streets, at work, and indeed in the home.
In Birmingham, a different approach to self-defence in a course given to women who work in social services.
You know what it's like when we get on the bus and we sit right next to the window, and a man perhaps gets on and sits next to us, and men take up so much more physical space than women do. And the first thing we do when their leg touches them is think it's our fault, and we get smaller still, wedge ourselves up against the side of the bus till we're in a position where we can't move. Then the hand comes on our knee, and there's nothing we can do, nowhere we can go. Much better just to grab hold of the hand, pull it up in the air, and bellow full blast. Whose dirty little hand is this?
Every woman in the class feared serious assault and had felt threatened or insulted by some small incident.
Like when you go to a department store and you're inquiring about where the pillowcases or where the valances are, you're with all the different types, you don't know where you're going. So you go up to an assistant, excuse me, could you show me where the valances are or whatever? And they're going, all right, love. The valances, oh, they're very nice, aren't they? And they're like this, come with us here, and they're there, and they're showing you the shots. And you're crouching down, you're looking over, you're going, which one do I want? And you're not quite sure, and he's there going, it's all right, love, I'll get it for you. And it's all across you. And to me, that's not on at all.
Socially, if you go out and you can see groups of men standing there and there are females about, and you can see them all laughing amongst themselves and joking and making comments about the various women around the room. you know, quite vulgar things, really.
Most men, even the most sympathetic of men, at some point will commit an offence against a woman, often without even realising it. They may just say something that makes us feel uncomfortable. They may, in their terms, be playing around. They may be play fighting. But those things all work to destroy our confidence and make us feel scared and uncomfortable.
Whose dirty little hand is this? Whose dirty little hand is this? Whose dirty little hand is this? Get your hand off me!
Perhaps the most startling finding of our survey is just how common assaults and abuse are. 34% of women had been sworn at in the streets. 18% had experienced unwelcome physical contact. 17%, that's nearly 1 in 5 women across the nation, had been flashed at. Pat Mackenzie is a secretary in London. On average, she says she's groped twice a week on her way to work.
He's touching me from behind, and I sort of tend to move my bag behind me, and it's like he found it quite funny and quite amusing, and I didn't.
What was he doing?
He was sort of like rubbing himself against me. When the tubes are generally packed, I find that some of the guys tend to take advantage and will push themselves towards the female. I generally sort of move away, and they tend to come back and take more advantage, so then I'll just come out the tube station. I tend to be more reserved and think, well, I won't wear that because I know I'm going to get hassled if I wear it. I wouldn't wear a mini really above my knees. I feel uneasy when I'm walking down the street when I find that a whole group of guys are whistling at me. I don't find it at all flattering. I feel that females should be able to come home from work and be relaxed without getting all the hassle and frustration. Well, I have been followed once home from work. The guy that was following me thought it was quite funny. I crossed over, he crossed over. I started to run, he started to run. I thought, well, I can't let this guy take a win over me, so I decided to pick up speed and literally run all the way home. I was angry because every time I turned back, he was smiling. It's as though he enjoyed it. And I was terrified and frightened, and I thought, well, how could people do this?
Some people would say that you invite male attention.
Well, do I write them letters and say, please come and attack me? I mean, I know what you're saying. Oh, she's got blonde hair and sometimes she wears a skirt above her knees. She must be asking for it. Which is complete rubbish, because I'm a human being in my own right. I'll dress for myself because I own a mirror and it's nice to look at nice clothes on my body, and that's it.
We asked women to gauge how strongly they felt about the problem of their safety to walk the streets. 78% said that they were very angry.
You have to have an acknowledgement from some men who haven't changed their opinions that women have a right to walk around in safety, that women have a right as much as men to go to places, any places, that women have a right to run their own lives without being told by men that some places maybe they shouldn't go to.
Well, I just think now in 1989, even more so, we're told that women have equal rights to men. It's a completely preposterous idea that we should still even be aware that there's the chance that men will use their physical superiority over us, because women don't go out and attack men, and yet men are equal to women, so why are they doing it to us?
I think until we get to the stage where women are respected as human beings in themselves and are regarded with the dignity which ought to be accorded to them as people with minds of their own and indeed bodies of their own, which are theirs, with talents of their own and wisdom of their own, rather than as possible sex objects or playthings or things to be abused. Until we get to that stage, then I think no woman is immune from male violence.
What would you say to men watching this programme who might not be aware of how bad the problem is?
I would ask them to consider that they live in a society where women are deprived of their normal rights, humanitarian rights, of being able to go out when and where they want, without supervision, without first thinking, is the bogeyman coming to get me? We should be free, and we're not free.